So, we've now reached the Phantom Liberty part of this series, and probably my favorite part. The entire feel of the expansion is meant to be just this James Bond spy thriller-esque feeling, and I believe it hits just about every mark that feeling would entail. I'm not about to rehash the entire DLC because I've talked about it before at length, and the story has been talked about to death, but one thing I need to give praise to before we begin is the Phantom Liberty song. It is bar none the greatest song featured in the game, and I will absolutely be analyzing it at the end, even if no mission is named after it. Before we begin, please do not watch this video if you care about spoilers. I know it's been a little over a year since the DLC released, but still, this is your first and only warning. Now, the beginning of the DLC happens after V's dealings with the Voodoo Boys in Pacifica, with Songbird contacting us through the use of the Black Wall, and she helps us infiltrate Dogtown. This gives us the mission Dog Eat Dog, a song by AC/DC. Probably one of my favorite bands, and it's probably the best possible intro to the DLC, as it perfectly encapsulates Night City, but Dogtown especially so. While Night City is a place that's dog eat dog, Dogtown is this belief personified. It's where the worst of the worst go to escape, work, live, die, win, lose, it doesn't matter. However, one of the first lines of the song kind of tips us off to whether or not we should actually be trusting Songbird. The line and subsequent lines after are as follows. Do you know who you can trust? Do you sign your life away? Do you write your name in dust? This is obviously in reference to whether or not to place our trust in Somi, but also if we should be signing our life away into what we will know as the FIA. It's a perfect segue into the greatest expansion in a video game. Up next, we have the mission Hole in the Sky. Space Force 1 has crash landed, and our objective is to save President Myers. The mission is named after the Black Sabbath song, and its meaning is both very literal and very similar to the last song on a deeper level. Of course, Space Force 1 was basically blown out of the sky, leaving a hole in it. However, again, we see the shades of the fact that we're being lied to by someone, but in the end, it doesn't really matter. Even if it is a lie, V can afford to not exhaust all of their options to save themselves. The song has the line, "I'm seeing nowhere through the eyes of a lie," meaning V can't see the point of what they're doing yet, but the line itself is almost spoken retroactively for V. They learn in the end that Songbird was lying but are currently trying to help in return for a cure. It also later includes the lines, "And even though I'm sitting here waiting for Mars, I don't believe there's any future in cars," which is absolutely in reference to the fact that Songbird is trying to get to the moon. Ultimately, it's where she'll be fixed, but V is also given a job to do on the moon for one of the Cyberpunk endings, so it could be in reference to that as well. V not believing in cars on the ground, but ships in the sky. After finding Myers, we're given the mission Spider and the Fly by the Rolling Stones, where we must escort Myers to a safe house after fighting the Chimera. I don't believe that there's any real connection, nor did I find one, besides the fact that the Chimera boss feels exactly as the title entails. You're basically a fly trying to battle a giant spider. I highly recommend playing Phantom Liberty for this boss fight at the very least. It's so sick and honestly very creative how they lead up to the boss fight itself. In fact, CDPR, while I hate IGN, has an entire interview with them explaining how they created this level, so I highly recommend reading that if you get the chance. Upon defeating the Chimera, we immediately begin Lucretia My Reflection, a song by the Sisters of Mercy. Now, the entire mission takes place all the way from the end of the Chimera fight and lasts until Reed and Myers reunite. I believe that's who the song is about. See, in the song, there's multiple references to the fact that the band is constantly breaking up and reforming, sort of like Reed and Myers. While they may not reform a lot, they're still not entirely on the outs with each other. Reed still has his loyalty to his job and the FIA, as well as his country. However, the Lucretia mentioned in the song is in reference to Lucretia Borgia, a scandalous woman from the Italian Renaissance who is also rumored to have killed anyone who would threaten her power. This could absolutely be talking about Myers, as she is a force to be reckoned with, and the person talking about her being Reed himself. There's so many ways to tackle this specific mission, so I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Once reunited, we're given instructions by Reed to meet at a bar where we're introduced to Alex, a new ally, and that there's a netrunner who may be able to help us find Somi. This starts the mission The Damned, which surprisingly actually doesn't have a song attached to it. If I had to choose, No Church in the Wild fits well. We learn how Somi contacted us and in doing so, allowed herself access to one of the strongest forces in the world. In a way, she made herself a non-believer that the song talks about because of the power she was given. She was only ever subservient to the FIA simply because she believed she needed to be, and is now, exactly what I said earlier, a non-believer. Seeing as how this mission doesn't have a song though, what do you think would fit best? During the end of The Damned, Song tells us she's going to be at the Black Sapphire, so Reed, V, and Alex make a plan to infiltrate the party. This mission is called Get It Together. Now, there's no specific version of this song that's attached to the mission, but of all the songs I've listened to with the title, I have a few ideas. Of course, the title is in literal reference to the fact that the team has to get their shit together in order to actually get into the Black Sapphire. However, all of the songs that I've heard seem like love songs. And while I don't believe in any way that Reed and Song love each other in that way, I do believe that's who the title is for. The two obviously share a very important bond, and it's become complicated by this point. She's the reason Reed was metaphorically killed and has been stuck in Night City for basically the better part of a decade. He's having a hard time deciding if what he's doing is right, but ultimately he knows he's going to try and save her. Again, I'd like to see what you guys would pick as the song to go with this mission. After all this planning, we get to the mission You Know My Name by Chris Cornell. We're meant to infiltrate the Black Sapphire and save Song, but we end up finding out it was her who coordinated the attack on Space Force 1. It's actually the theme song of the 2006 James Bond movie Casino Royale. Now, a bit of a sidebar, I highly recommend watching Casino Royale. It's one of the best Bond movies ever. The song works on multiple levels because of it being used for this particular mission though. The Black Sapphire itself feels like an exaggerated version of the casino in the movie, but there's also a part much like Bond and Le Chiffre during the poker games. However, the song itself is written from the perspective of M, Bond's handler. She's pretty much describing Bond as a character and his job, as well as the sacrifices he may have to make in order to fulfill his duty as a 00 agent. This is a very obvious comparison to Myers and Reed. They're almost a dark reflection of Bond and M, as they share a storied history full of betrayal and secrets. However, the relationship between Bond and M feels genuine, while Reed and Myers feels more transactional, even with all they've shared. Once we leave the party, thankfully unscathed, we have to meet with Song, and after learning her true intentions, decide we're going to help her. We must now get a particular implant if we have any hope of doing so. We then begin the missions Birds with Broken Wings by Ben Kaplan. Now this is one of those songs I heard when making this video and immediately liked it. The song at its core is about the everyday wrongdoings of the society we live in today, but we must in order to enjoy the spoils of life. In other words, there's no way we can enjoy and appreciate the good things in life without knowing about the other side as well. As for what this means for the mission, it's absolutely about Songbird herself. The obvious play on her name in the title is one thing, but it also describes her in a literal sense. She's trapped in her predicament with no way out, hence her having broken wings. She's also made it worse because we now know that she colluded with Hansen to get SP1 shot down. She had to experience her lows to appreciate the life she has now. It happened when she was originally recruited by Reed, and now once again, as she doesn't know what to do, but she knows she messed up. It's an interesting dynamic for her to have between her feelings and the reality of the situation. We've gathered everything we need to have our final meet with Kurt Hansen. Starting the mission, I've Seen That Face Before, a song by Grace Jones. It follows a narrator subject and is essentially about this man who we see on the surface having fun and living life, but in the end, we don't know who he truly is. He may put on this facade about who he is and what he does, so it's hard to gauge just how he feels and what he actually is. It doesn't mean much for this particular mission besides the fact that we basically use someone else's face to meet Hansen, but it absolutely has implications for the story as a whole, and we keep coming back to Song. We had no clue what Song was doing, even with our suspicions that maybe she's not who she says she is. It could also be about Reed, who constantly wanted to keep things from us during the DLC, only until it was time for us to know. Finally, we reach the Turning Point mission and the meet with Hansen, Firestarter. I know that in the past I haven't discussed the different choices in certain missions, but for this DLC, I absolutely will. Firestarter is named after a song by The Prodigy, and truthfully, the meaning and song are used very literally. Songbird was the beginning of this entire journey we've gone on so far, making her the Firestarter. The mission we're about to play is the Firestarter for the amount of shit that's about to hit the fan no matter what choice we make. There's not much more besides this to the mission, so let's talk about the different choices we can make at this moment. If we choose to side with Reed during Firestarter, this gives us the mission Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos. It's a song by Public Enemy and is very fitting given the circumstance. The song is about a man being thrown in jail for not wanting to serve in the army after being drafted. The song also dives more into the racial aspects of a black man wrongfully being thrown in jail, so it could have two meanings for the mission. Obviously, it serves as a big fuck you to the government as a whole, so it could be trying to put us in Song's mind at the time of her being taken away by MaxTac after she broke out of Hansen's hideout, but I believe it fits Reed more. Not only is Reed himself, surprise surprise, a black man, but he expresses some regret during the mission of extracting Song from MaxTac. He wishes he didn't have to do what he's doing, which is basically kidnap her again, but of course he's under immense pressure from the NUSA. I don't believe Myers or anyone else has a racial motivation in forcing Reed to do what he's doing, but he's still absolutely got no choice but to follow along. The black steel, however, that the song is referring to could also be Reed's character. He's of course a black man, but the steel itself is his unrelenting will. Even if he doesn't want to do something, if it's part of the job, he's going to get it done. After failing to capture Song from MaxTac, but accidentally letting her loose, we begin the mission Somewhat Damaged, a song by 9 Inch Nails. Now before I explain the song or what happens, this is far and above the scariest mission in the game. I went into this hearing about it being a little scary, but I thought it would be a regular Cyberpunk mission with some horror aspects. You go to a place, do an objective, shoot some stuff, and that's it. I did not think I'd be playing Alien Isolation. That being said, we're trying to get Song to just relax at this point because the Black Wall has taken control of her almost entirely. The song reflects Song's mind during this entire mission in that she doesn't care anymore and feels betrayed by everyone, but is also trying to battle something taking over her mind. The song deals in the idea that the person it's talking about lost faith. Faith in the person they looked up to, faith in the system, the whole 9 yards. Song lost her faith in her government after what they made her do, faith in Reed for not helping her, faith in V for betraying her. Once we catch up with Song and capture her again, we hand her over to a very sad Reed and a happy Myers who congratulates you on a job well done. This is the mission Leave in Silence, a song by Depeche Mode. I honestly believe that the song is very straightforward in its meaning. It's a goodbye from Song but has a darker undertone. Song did what she did to make a point and now she's leaving in silence. What Myers made her do will never be talked about, her pain will never be discussed, she'll never be able to share her story. Like the song says, she's outlived the illusion of being free and has now reached the natural conclusion of the way things were going to end no matter what. The song also describes this feeling of wanting to stop something from spreading like a cancer and wishing they knew the answer for how to stop it. This specific line, I believe, could be in reference to the Black Wall. It could be this foreshadow for what may come in the future, but I believe there's no way the Black Wall simply left her system. She knows it's still there, biding its time, waiting to come back. We have now reached the end of the Reed ending with the mission 4-7. It's a song by the band Titus Andronicus, and it's about the ultimate power struggle that men have always had since the dawn of time. Whether it's with each other or authority, there's always been conflict. I honestly believe this is what Reed feels during the mission as he reflects on the last few weeks with Song and V, and whether or not he did the right thing. Ultimately, I believe he knows that deep down there's an issue with the people he serves. However, his issue lies in that he continues to be a cog in a machine he doesn't seem to fully believe in. Reed seems fully ready to give up on the NUSA, but then says he's needed quote-unquote at Langley. It's such a toxic relationship he has, but it's so interesting to watch unfold. Let me know what you guys think about Reed's relationship with the NUSA. I'm very curious to hear. Now let's back up a bit to Firestarter. In that mission you had a choice to betray Songbird or Reed. Like I said earlier, for the last few minutes I've talked about what happens if you betray Song. I'd like to now discuss the missions you get for betraying Reed. If we side with Song, the mission we get after Firestarter is called the Killing Moon. We've saved Song and now we need to wait before making our next move to get her to safety. Once she contacts us, we need to get her on a shuttle to the moon, as it's the only place she can cure herself and eventually us. The song itself is by Echo and the Bunnymen and is ultimately about fate. Whether we want something to happen, it's meant to take place and there's nothing we can do about it. And it's with this logic that I think Song and V were meant to meet Reed on the platform to the moon. No matter what, someone was going to end up dead or worse. However, one thing I left out, V is told by Song that she lied. There's only enough of a cure for one of them, giving V the choice of switching sides in the end. This idea of fate could also be that V is doomed no matter what. There's also the idea that we should have never trusted Song, given everything that's happened prior. This ending definitely feels more fleshed out for what we got in the other ending in terms of dialogue, but I want to hear what you guys think. If you had to pick, what would be the canon choice in this situation? Through Pain to Heaven is the final mission we get if we don't kill Reed during the Killing Moon, and it actually doesn't have any lyrics. It's a song made by Popol Vuh for an old Nosferatu movie. With no lyrics, it is a bit hard to analyze, but truthfully, the instrumental feels perfect for the mission. Ultimately, the mission is similar to 4-7 in that it's just a conversation between V and Reed about everything that's happened. However, there's something about the instrumental that just works. Certain parts of the song feel so hopeful, and then it switches back to a monotonous progression that feels like you're going nowhere. It reflects where Reed is mentally, sometimes hopeful, but for the most part, isn't going anywhere. Finally, we get to talk about the best song in the game, Phantom Liberty. If you've ever heard the Bond intro songs, more specifically the Craig Bond intro songs, they are some of the best songs I've ever heard. Adele, Sam Smith, Billie Eilish all did great, but if I had to pick something even remotely close to those intro songs, I'd pick Phantom Liberty. The artist's name is PT and then a Polish last name, so for the sake of me not butchering and being disrespectful to the name, I'm just gonna call him PT, but his voice is absolutely incredible, and I highly recommend that you listen to this song if you haven't already. Barring a mission here or there, that's pretty much the end of Phantom Liberty. I'll cover the actual Phantom Liberty endings in the Act 3 video, where I'll be discussing all of the endings from the main story. This video and the end of this series has been a long time coming, so I can't wait to finish it for you guys. I may have another video coming out before it, so I also can't wait for you guys to see that as well. It's going to be about the Penguin, as honestly, it's one of the best shows I've seen in a while. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I also want to hear from you guys in the comments down below about these songs. Take care of yourself, take care of one another. Peace.